talking about a couple things this morning where there is a lot of wisdom in the room beyond wisdom that I have, and so what I want us to do is I'll talk some, but I also want to set up some group discussion and let some of the folks here in the room who have dealt with some of this to share some of the wisdom they have because they've got some experience that I don't have. And so I think we'll all walk away more blessed if more people are involved in the process today. Talking about retirement and talking about insurance. Now those are compelling subjects, right? Retirement you may not even be thinking about. You know, if you're young, and that seems like a long way away, and you know, I'm closer to 50 now than 40, and that's, in one sense, it's a little depressing. And you never thought, you know, 50, there was a day when 50 just seemed old, and now I'm looking at 50 in the mirror, and it seems pretty young. But retirement, you know, you start thinking about those things. And so, talk about some basics with retirement planning, and then we'll open that up and for questions and for comments and for things to be shared, and then we'll talk a little bit about insurance, and then that'll be our program for today. There are two ways to put aside money for retirement. You can do that in a pre-tax way where if your salary is $50,000 and you say, I want to put $5,000 in retirement, the $5,000 that you never see, you're not taxed on. That's pre-tax retirement, and so it goes into a retirement fund, and so it's not on your W-2 as part of your salary. Now you're going to correct me anything that I say wrong, correct?
You are taxed on it, but later when you take it out.
Exactly, and we're getting there. So in that case, if you set that up with a church, they're going to cut the check to the financial institution that's holding your retirement funds. You're never going to handle that money. You're never going to see it. You'll get reports on how it's growing and hopefully growing and that type of thing. One thing you'd be wise to do is when you're getting ready to go to work with a church, ask them if they'll match in full or in part whatever you set aside for retirement. You know, because a lot of companies do that. If you go to work, if some of you have secular work experience, if you're setting aside a percentage of your salary up to a percentage, they'll match that. So it's like giving yourself a retirement raise simply by setting money aside. And so ask that question, what's the worst thing the church can say? No. And that's the worst they can do. Well, they could fire you, but I don't think they'll fire you over that question. And if that's the case, then you shouldn't be working with them anyway.
They'll fire you instead.
That's right.
Early retirement.
Now, what Pat mentioned is very true. If you put aside money pre-tax, meaning it goes out and you haven't paid taxes on it, as it is growing and earning interest and growing into what you hope will be this nice retirement nest egg, whatever you want to call it, when you start withdrawing that money out later in life, you'll pay taxes on it then. And so some people say, well, that's not really good because taxes are always going to go up, tax rates may go up, and so you might not be wise, you might be wise to pay tax on the money now and set it aside, because if you do it the other way, and that's what we'll talk about here in the second part, then you won't pay taxes on it later. Retirement plans that are pre-tax, it would be called a 403B, which is the nonprofit version of a 401k, and you're all familiar with that term. That's a retirement plan where you're setting aside money pre-tax. If you go the after-tax route, that would be you get your paycheck and you say, okay, that budget that we talked about 2 weeks ago, in my budget I'm setting aside X number of dollars that are going into my retirement plan, and you set that up as what we call a Roth IRA, where that money goes in there, and because you've already paid taxes on it, as it grows and then builds into this egg later on, as you draw money out in retirement, then you don't pay taxes on that money. And so some people subscribe to that way of doing it. Now, one thing I would recommend to you is, if the church is willing to do it, even if you're going to do an after-tax program, let them send the money to your retirement program. Why would you want them to do that? If you don't touch it, you won't spend it. And the reason we haven't had tax revolt in this country is because of tax withholding. You know, a lot of people all year they pay in, the money's withheld from their paycheck, and then at the end of the year they've got the audacity to say, man, I didn't have to pay any taxes this year, I actually got money back. Well, you know, the government, they love that way of thinking. If we all had to write a check every week to the IRS, we could get some things fixed because people would be irritated. And so, even if you're paying, if you're going to do retirement after tax, even if the church will write the check for you and you don't have to do that, it's better off, because if you handle the money, then you're, you know, well, I got to spend it on this, or I might want to spend it on that. But again, going back 2 weeks ago, if you're strong with your budget, you can make that work. Several keys, whether you do it before tax or after tax. Start right away, as soon as you get your first job. You know, a lot of times starting off, well, you know, retirement's a long way away, I'll start later. And the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be. The sooner you form the habit. I mean, if you start right away, you're better off. Especially if you've opted out of Social Security. And if you've opted out of Social Security, you have no retirement plan other than the one you set up. Now, a lot of people say, well, Social Security is going away. It may be. I don't think it completely will, just because our government has set up such a mother cow dependency that they're going to set up something. I don't think they're going to let people starve. But if you've opted out of Social Security, retirement planning is totally on you. And so start right away. When you're interviewing with a church about taking a job, interview them about how they do their finances. And a couple of examples. Some churches are very good. Down in North Highlands in Russellville, when I was working with them, their treasurer's a CPA. And so they did some great things for people working there. They would withhold federal and state taxes from your paycheck, and they would turn it in. They would submit it, which meant you didn't have to file quarterly returns in that. And they do the retirement stuff. If the preacher's doing retirement, they handle all of that. If you get the sense that the church has no clue financially, that ought to really raise some red flags about whether you want to work with that church, because the church can get you in a huge financial mess if they don't know what they're doing. And I would interview them. And if you can get them to do your retirement money, if they'll send it in, you're better off. Work with a financial planner of some sort regarding how you want to invest your retirement funds. And typically, we won't go into detail there, when you're young, you want to take more risk, which would mean more money in the stock market, because then it can grow more. And then as you get older and close to retirement, you want to take money out of risk and into safe. It's going to earn less interest, but it's not going to just, when the stock market blows up, then your retirement won't be gone. And so that's just a few things. What questions do you have, or what other things should I have said, from some of you that have been doing this a long time? What other things should we be talking about there under retirement? No hands.
Debt management is a part of a long-range retirement plan.
Absolutely.
And a plan to eliminate debt. As I know you addressed 2 weeks ago, but that's very important.
That what Dennis said is exactly right, and I've realized it more and more. There's not a good investment right now out there. There's just not.
Right.
Except to get rid of your debt. I mean, so you ought to pay cash when you can.
I had a
I'm
guy
too old, I
say-
realize that way too late,
Right.
but right now, if people ask me, we talked the other day about investments, there's not a good one. You get 1 or 2% on a CD, or in some kind of money market account. Well, the value of your money is going down faster than the interest you're earning.
Right.
So the best thing to do is not owe anything.
There's another way to gain financial strength when the investments are not paying off your way. It's like a guy who said to me not long ago, he's an attorney, he said, I was offered 10% on some money the other day, but I turned it down because I'm getting 25% return on my investment. I said, how are you doing that? He said, I'm paying off my credit card.
Mm-hmm.
If you owe a 6% loan on your house and the banks are only paying 1% on saving, you can gain 6% on your investment by paying off the 6% loan.
Right.
Maybe you can, so always, that's the best way.
Right.
First, to get rid of.
That's a killer. That's for sure. Yes, Jerry.
2 things from a theological point of view that I wish I would have known. when I was a student was, number one, it was easier to save money when I was a student than each year after. Does that make sense? You don't think it is, but it is in many ways. And number two, I remember thinking that because I wanted to be a preacher, that I didn't need to think about money. Because Jesus said you can serve God or mammon.
Right.
And what I did, and I would hear preachers say, "Well, I'm never going to retire. I'm giving my life to the Lord." And I would think that sounds great, but the thing about it is sometimes you get to a point, well, nobody will pay you to be a minister, and you can't eat grass.
Right.
So you better think about, there's many things that happen in your life you don't anticipate or think about.
Right.
So retirement was not what I thought retirement was a materialistic idea. I had a very bad misconception of it. It's not. It's very
That's a good
it's on
point.
preparation.
That's a good point. Eric and then Corey.
This is more, I guess, of a question. Have any of you ever experienced where the congregation has enough money to pay you, say, for the year, and then you can ask for, say, hey, would you mind giving me $5,000 so I can put away off the top for retirement, $5,000 for debt, $5,000 for health savings account, instead of insurance or whatever? I mean, has anybody ever heard of a congregation being willing to do something like that?
Anybody?
I'll speak to that. My
Okay.
experience has been that most congregations want to give you a total compensation. And you can tell them as you're talking with them that these are commitments that you have and things you want to accomplish, and ask them to take that into account with the total compensation.
They've got a total, and then you tell them, or work with
Yes.
them about how you structure each piece of the.
Yeah,
each
and
piece.
they might consider increasing that total so that you can do more in retirement.
Right. That's a good point.
Well, I know that you may want to move on to some other things which would be wise, but could you comment on Social Security opting out? I'm sure that some of us in here have, and some of us haven't. There are pros and cons to both, and it might be wise to
Well-
tell the guys what those are.
If you opt out, which means, and there's a statement you got to sign. I've never read the statement, but what is, somebody tell me what the statement says first
You
of all.
have to have a conscientious objection to church money being used for publicly funded insurance.
Okay.
You have to believe religiously that's wrong.
You have to believe that it's a sin of stewardship.
Okay.
Well, I
The
think
government is a poor steward of your money.
well,
And we know they're a poor steward, but to sign that is, I'm sorry.
we could pull that, but I think they asked me to sign, which I did not opt out, but it says that you have to conscientiously object to receiving funds from the federal government, which I don't have a problem with at all.
And the biggest negative of opting out is you may not have the discipline to pay in.
And that's
the
where.
second biggest negative is you're then out of insurance.
Disability is-
The disability
Right.
medical things when you turn
That's-
65.
Great point.
I think it's Form 4361, I think I'm remembering that right. Anybody wants to look it up at irs.gov.
I've seen a number of preachers who opted out at one point who have been figuring out a way to get back in, or have said, man, I've got to go do some secular work to earn enough quarters to get paid based on the secular work that I've done, because they realize you don't want to be without the retirement insurance and
Philip, you also lose Medicare.
right, and then the Medicare. So if you have opted out though, you want to start again working on self-insuring and retirement. In other words, if you could take the money that you pay into the government for FICA tax, which is retirement tax, if you took that same percentage, which is what percentage now?
Well, it's
Approximately.
565 right this second.
It's what?
It used to be 765. Well, you gotta double it, so it's 12.6, because you're
Because you're
self-employed.
self-employed. So if you opt out, if you take the 12.6 and you immediately start dumping all of that into your own retirement program, you're gonna be in pretty good shape later on. But the problem is, well, 12.6 is a lot. And so since I've got it in hand, I don't dump all that into my own program. And I think that's what's happened with a lot of the guys who opted out years ago, and now they're realizing, I gotta figure out something that I can do, and so some of them will go to work and do some secular work, earn enough quarters that they can actually be in the system again, but, I don't know if that's what you want to discuss, Travis, but the opting out thing is something you need to think long and hard about, and I would talk to some people who've done it and some people who haven't before I made a decision, to get some wisdom from both sides.
Well, that's been around for years too, because when I was a student, I was thinking about opting out, and I talked to June Miner, who was working for one of the income tax. Yeah, it was Block.
Okay.
And she said, I'll get you the form, Wayne, but after you read it, I don't think you'll want to sign it. And that's all she said. And I read it, and I said, you're right, June, I can't sign that. I said, my pocketbook objects, but I can't conscientiously object to it.
Right, okay. Well, that's, in nothing you do, you don't want to violate your conscience. So, good point. Well, let's talk for a few minutes about health insurance. Well, about insurance, and primarily we'll mention health insurance. It's harder to find a good group plan when you're in ministry the way we do it in Churches of Christ, because you're not part of a large organization where there's large group plans available to you. Now, when you're younger, it'll be easier to find individual plans, and they're going to seem very affordable. But then as you get older, and you start having maybe some pre-existing health issues, and you know, we are a well-medicated society, and so then you got your prescriptions that you got to have, and a lot of those are very expensive. The older you get, the more difficult it becomes to find a good program. If you're married and your wife is going to work outside the home, you know, you don't want to work her to death, but I mean, what she ought to be looking for is a place that has decent benefits, because that can set up a good situation for you as a family in the insurance, on the insurance side. The couple things, especially for you guys who are younger, try to get healthy and maintain that health. It'll never be easier to become healthy for you than it is today, because the older we get, the more difficult it becomes. You know, and you know, sometimes we don't say out loud the things that need to be said, but you know, that might mean losing weight. It might mean getting to the gym, eating better, whatever it is. Not just for the sake of someday it's easier to find insurance. Your ministry will be better. You'll be less stressed out in your ministry. You'll be more hireable, and it doesn't sound nice to say, but you will be. And because people make decisions based on a lot of externals. And so the more healthy you are, the better you're going to be, and it will make it easier for you to find insurance. Now, as far as shopping for an individual insurance plan, I've never had to go do that. And so that's why I wanted, you know, there to be some discussion today, because we've got guys in the room who have had to go do that. Some of y'all that have bought insurance, what advice do you have to offer?
Individual Blue with Blue Cross Blue Shield's what we use, and I mean, it's, at my age, it's very reasonable.
Okay.
It covers all of us, and I think I pay $386 a month, which, and there are different deductible levels you can choose. You know, you can pay less or more, but I think we've got like a $750 deductible or something like that.
Okay.
Alpha Insurance offers an open enrollment into Blue Cross Blue Shield once a year if you're part of the Alabama Farmers Federation or whatever it is that Alpha is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mutual insurance, so therefore you do get the group rate, and you can do that once a year, I think. Or it may be open enrollment now, but
Okay.
at one time it was once a year.
There's a time during the year when you can do that.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes.
The benefit of the group is they'll let anybody in, regardless of your health. But usually you can go get an individual plan. When I lived in Florida, I got an individual plan, and it was about 25% of the cost of a group plan. And they won't let you buy across state lines, or else I'd still have that, but it was like a couple $100 a month, and it was really good insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, for us, the individual Blue is cheaper than through Blue Cross Blue Shield through Alpha.
Okay.
But like Travis said, it's gonna vary, but for us, it's cheaper to just do it on our own.
Okay.
And you can get a quote on the Blue Cross Blue Shield website, like in two minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you tell them what county you live in, how old you are, people are in the family, and they'll tell you how much you gotta pay.
It's definitely one of those issues when you're setting up a budget, you wanna have it in there. And, as you can see, the shopping thing and talking to some people who are doing it and gathering information is gonna be really good. And, you know, Travis mentioned one of the things in ministry, there's a lot of moving across state lines. And, so you know, when you're contemplating a move, one thing you might want to be doing as you're looking at a congregation is finding out what your health insurance options may be in that state to which you're going. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to be ugly, Philip, but as an elder, I would not hire a preacher who did not have health insurance. I'll tell anybody why later if they want to know.
Well, no, I mean, that's
good.
that's wise. And again, it may even be one where, you can set it up so that the church, they're taking it out of your overall package, but they're writing the check, and it's not you don't have to write the check. They'll do that. That would be good. Any other thoughts on health insurance? I mean, that's just touching the surface, but you need to have it. And then life insurance also. You know, why have life insurance? I mean, have you known anybody yet that's left before they intended to? I mean, that's reason enough. Now, if you're single, who cares?
Unless you leave bills that.
Unless you leave bills that some other folks are gonna have to take care of. But once you've got a family, you know, you need to have that insurance in place so that your family is taken care of, you know, at least for a while. And if you got kids, term life insurance is inexpensive, and pay the premium, and if you pass on, it'll pay a check out. So, but you need to have some life insurance. We're right up against it on time. Any other comments on either retirement or insurance? I didn't try to, can't stand before you as an expert on this stuff.
When I was a younger man, someone told me that disability insurance guarantees that you'll be able to pay for your other insurance. You can set it up so that maybe you have a nest egg, and if you're disabled, then for 6 months to a year, you can support yourself. And then that kicks in with a large percentage of your income.
Right.
Enables you to keep paying your other bills.
And disability is not something you really think about when you're young. We were playing volleyball with some folks on Saturday, and one of the guys younger than me blew his ACL. And so he's not working, but it's just one of those reminders that, I mean, as we get more old and more out of shape, and you don't have to be out of shape to have a disability. I mean, you could be in Brad he had a car wreck. Who would have thought? And you can't control what other people are going to do, and then get into the car and you're out there with them. It's probably one of the most risky things we do every day is drive.
I want to say, especially to all you younger guys, you may think this is a big waste of time. I don't know. I've just seen a lot of people when we're talking about health insurance and life insurance who have just decided that they're going to trust God, and just put all their faith in God that He's going to take care of it. And then something really bad happens, and everybody else pays for them. So, you're trusting God, but really what you're doing is you're trusting everybody else to take care of you because you're just too lazy to take care of yourself.
Well, and I think part of trusting God is taking advantage of the blessings that He provides. And one of the blessings is, we're in a culture where we have access to some things that will help us. Yes, sir.
I just walked in here a bit ago. There's two things I'd like to briefly say.
Yes.
And it's always hard for me to say anything briefly. I'll take those words out of your mouth. This issue of letting other people take care of it, there is essentially something immoral in having the ability to have the insurance and then relying on let other people pay for it. If I ride a motorcycle without a helmet and I get brain injury and I'm a patient for the rest of my life, let the world take care of it. Something wrong with that morally. Two, on life insurance, you mentioned that single guys might not need it. On the other hand, for $25 a month, a young single man could probably provide somewhere around $250,000 to $500,000 for scholarships if he made the school the beneficiary. And what a legacy he could leave for himself in that event, and what would he want better to have done to multiply what he would have done had he been able to live?
Yes.
Which, cause there's so many insurance out, they advertise on the TV. Which one that you have to pick out is appropriate for you, cause there's so many of them advertising insurance, life insurance.
You saying which one?
Yeah, cause so many of them they got on there, you don't know, which one, the life insurance, like Liberty and.
I think you gotta shop, but I think you're wise to get with somebody who knows a lot about it and let them help you.
Okay.
And I've gotta stop right here because we're gonna be into class time.
Okay.
So Derek, I appreciate the interaction. I think it's something we probably could spend more time on, but,